Being a complete beginner at anything is highly overwhelming, and the more overwhelmed you are, the more likely you are to not do anything at all. This is why I thought about making this video after I saw a picture of my 14-year-old self. I didn't know anything about working out or calisthenics. If you can't afford a gym, or if you simply don't like them, or if you want a good looking body, then calisthenics is a valid option to start without any sort of pressure. Calisthenics can mean a lot of things: weighted, skill, endurance. However, from the perspective of a sedentary person who can barely do a push-up, there is no possibility of focusing entirely on one of these branches of calisthenics or doing a specific work. Calisthenics basically means any type of body weight exercise. Ultimately, if your interest is to get good at skills or weighted calisthenics, you will inevitably have to go through the basics first, unless you have an extensive sport background or are born strong. First, this is a list of the exercises we are going to learn: push-up, bodyweight row, squat, split squat, pull-up, dip, and finally pike push-up. These are the only exercises you will do for a time, not a lot of exercises really. From the perspective of a beginner, it is a fine amount, but as you get stronger, it will probably be better to learn more exercises or do more variations of them. Before learning their technique and how to do them, we are going to take a look into the programming structure. I choose full body because it allows you to hit your muscles multiple times without needing to commit so many days to train. As an example, if you work out twice per week and do a full body program, you will be hitting all your muscles twice per week without needing to commit for 6 days per week, like in push-pull legs. This is perfect for busy people. A negative characteristic of a full body is that as you get stronger, you will need more sets and reps to grow in the context of calisthenics. Your workouts might get really long. However, this is something you will not need to worry about right now. There are going to be 3 stages of the program. In each stage, you will do new exercises. The first stage of the full body program is going to be composed of only 4 exercises: the push-up, the bodyweight row, the squat, and the split squat. The first exercise you are going to do is the push-up, then the bodyweight row, then the squat, and after the squat, the split squat. Priority of exercise for now doesn't matter that much, although just take in consideration that you're probably going to train harder on the first exercise just because you are fresher. This first stage can be done without any equipment, although it will be better to go to a calisthenic park or a playground. To learn a push-up, go to the floor and place your arms on the ground. I think beginners benefit from a close grip, so hold your arms a bit closer than shoulder width. Make sure they are straight while your feet are touching the ground. The rest of your body should be straight. Make sure your wrists are somewhat aligned to your shoulders. It doesn't need to be perfect. Personally, I sometimes like my wrist to be a bit backwards relative to my shoulders. The next step is to go down as you bend your elbow. As you go down, your shoulders should go forward and your elbow should be somewhat aligned to your wrist. You can either go all the way down or reach 90 degrees. Once your elbows reach 90 degrees, push as you extend your arms. One big issue for beginners is always the doubt of bad form. I remember that the doubt of not knowing how to do an exercise could overwhelm me into giving up. If in doubt, film yourself with your phone. The reason why I chose a somewhat close grip is because when you hold a close grip, you can ignore the space between your elbow and your torso. Generally, in the standard push-up, there is a 45-degree space between your elbow and your torso. Most beginners can't control their body, or they are simply not aware of it, or they simply don't have enough feedback from other people to tell if they are doing good form. Instead of worrying so much about this space, by simply holding a close grip, you can bring your elbows close to your torso and ignore the specific space between your elbow and your torso. This close grip will target your triceps and shoulders a bit more than a conventional push-up, and that will be how to do a push-up. It utilizes your chest, shoulders, and triceps. A mistake to avoid will be to have your hips too low or too high. The speed or tempo you should do for now, in most exercises, is neither a fast or low tempo. It is fine if each rep takes around 1 second to complete. If you cannot do a floor push-up, by simply increasing the height of the surface your hands are supposed to be on, you can make it easier. Otherwise, everything is the same, basically an incline push-up. The second exercise is the Australian pull-up, or another name is the bodyweight row. As opposed to the push-up, the bodyweight row is a pulling exercise which will use most of your back, although you could say that it is insanely similar to the push-up, at least if you invert it. In order to do a bodyweight row, you will need to find a bar that at least reaches your hips or stomach. If you're at home, there are plenty of videos that demonstrate how to do it with 2 chairs and 1 broomstick. After you learn the push-up, learning the bodyweight row becomes easier. To do a bodyweight row, get your body down and hold the bar with your arms straight. Similarly, like in a push-up, we start with straight arms and a somewhat close grip. In this exercise, I also like to have my wrists a bit backwards relative to my shoulders. With legs straight, you will notice that the height of your feet will be lower than the height of your torso. This will force your body to be in a somewhat inclined position. If you find problems trying to have a 45-degree space between your elbow and your torso, you can always do the trick of a close grip and get your elbows close to your torso. Now pull. As you pull, your elbow will go downwards, basically shoulder extension. If too difficult, you can also do it with your legs bent. Ideally, it will be good if you manage to touch the bar with your chest. Otherwise, 90 degrees can be fine for now. Like in a push-up, you can increase the height of the surface of your hands. This in turn will make it easier if you cannot do a standard Australian pull-up. A common mistake to avoid in the bodyweight row is your hips being too low. The next exercise is the squat. In comparison to the push-up or bodyweight row, the squat is a bit more complicated to learn just because we not only need to bend our knees, but we also need to involve the extension and flexion of our hips, and as a result, our torso will need to go forward and be in a diagonal position for balance. It basically requires more coordination. To perform a squat, first stand upright. Now in the initial position, bend your hips and your knees simultaneously. If you are still confused about it, you can practice it individually. This will be hip flexion and extension, and this will be knee flexion and extension. Hypothetically, if you will only bend your knees and not your hips at all, your torso will be completely vertical. Your center of gravity will shift behind your legs and you will fall. Just make sure your back is not arched like crazy. Also, make sure your knees don't go too inside or outside. Align them with the direction of your feet. Once your knees reach 90 degrees, go up. As you go up, extend your legs while you simultaneously extend your hips. You can go further than 90 degrees. However, this will require mobility that most sedentary people don't have. Do the range of motion that your mobility lets you do, and that will be a squat. The next exercise is the split squat. The split squat is similar to a squat but with one leg on the front and the other one on the back. To perform a split squat, put one foot forward and the other foot on the back. Lean a bit towards the front leg. Bend your legs as you go down. Push and extend your knees. Change the legs and repeat. As you have realized, all the exercises shown here are compound exercises. Compound exercises require different muscle groups. In the context of calisthenics beginners, this is great because it means that the load of your body weight is divided on different parts of your body. For now, your body is weak, and doing bodyweight isolation exercises will probably be too heavy for you. You're going to do a standard 4 sets for each exercise, and you're going to do as many reps as you can per set, basically reaching failure or close to failure. If you can only do 1 push-up, then do 1 push-up per set. So as long as you keep training, you will increase your reps eventually. Even if this might seem like an inefficient way to improve your reps, it will still work. And in my perspective, it is better to not overcomplicate your training with other training methods, especially when you are a complete beginner. Also, it is not like the push-up is a hard exercise, therefore there is no need for a specific method. Rest between 1 to 3 minutes per set. The specifics don't really matter for now. Generally, if the exercise is too hard or you have done a set too hard or if you feel a bit more tired than usual, resting more is better. If you don't know what a set is basically a way to divide the amount of reps you do. For each set, there is rest in between sets. If there were not sets, then the total amount of reps you could do will be highly limited. You can either do this once per week or twice per week, or more times as you wish. The amount of times you do this workout per week depends on your own needs and time limitations. You decide the days, and you decide how this workout fits into your life. Generally, it is better to have at least 1 day of rest in between per workout. If you decide to do this workout 4 times per week, the amount of weekly sets will be 16 sets of push-ups, 16 sets of bodyweight rows, 16 sets of squats, 16 sets of split squats. It might seem like too little for other people. However, so as long as you train hard, you will see progress. Also, you can increase sets if you wish. On average, this workout will take you around 30 to 45 minutes to complete. Do basic stretches and joint rotations. If you're about to do push-ups, for example, stretch your muscles involved and rotate your shoulder, elbow, and wrist joint for at least 1 minute. There are plenty of YouTube tutorials if you are still in doubt. The purpose and goal of this first stage is to introduce calisthenics in a very simple, somewhat minimalistic way, with not very heavy exercises and little to no worry. The limited amount of exercises makes this very straightforward, very good in eliminating any overwhelming feeling. It is easy to follow and doesn't require much time or commitment. It will definitely make you stronger, and it is aimed towards people who don't know how to work out and are sedentary. Before moving to the second stage, you must reach at least 20 push-ups in one set, 15 bodyweight rows in one set, 30 squats in one set, and 20 split squats per leg in one set. This will give you a path forward and a clear goal to follow. There is no specific date in which you must reach these arbitrary numbers. Some people might reach this in 2 months, others in less time, others in more time. Some people might have a background in sports and skip the first stage altogether. Some people might be sedentary and only be able to do 1 push-up. Remember that this is your journey, not anyone else's. Once you reach those goals, it is time to go to the second stage. The only difference between the first stage and the second stage is an introduction of 2 very popular exercises that are harder to do. The first stage was made so you are able to achieve these 2 exercises very easily, the pull-up and the dip. With the introduction of these 2 fundamental exercises, the program will look like this. You will do pull-ups first, then dips, then bodyweight rows, then push-ups, then squats, and finally split squats. There are 3 ways to categorize calisthenics exercises. Exercises where we have extra points of support and therefore they only use a portion of our own body weight, those like the push-up and bodyweight row. Exercises where we don't have extra support, such as dips, pull-ups, and squats, and use all of our body weight. Exercises where we don't have extra support, use all of our body weight, and to put a cherry on top, we have a lever disadvantage, such as the front lever exercises. As you notice, all exercises of the first stage have extra points of support except for the squat. This is because it is not realistic to add exercises like the pull-up and dip to beginners who can only do a few push-ups and bodyweight rows. It is also really harsh for the joints to go for a dip or a pull-up when you are so weak. The more overweight you are, the harsher this is going to be. The squat is an exception because it not only utilizes much more muscles, but your legs are inherently bigger and therefore stronger. Priority of exercise and the order makes sense, because the pull-up and the dip are intrinsically heavier because of the lack of extra points of support. Therefore, it is recommended that they are done first. If you're a beginner and decide to do push-ups and bodyweight rows first, by the time you do pull-ups and dips, you will not have enough strength to make a productive workout. By the time you're able to do 20 push-ups in a row and 15 bodyweight rows, you should have developed basic upper body strength to be able to do at least 1 pull-up and 1 dip. To do a pull-up, similarly like the bodyweight row, you are going to perform a pulling motion, basically shoulder extension but at a different torso position and a different range of motion than the bodyweight row. To do a pull-up, you obviously need some sort of bar. You can go to a playground or a calisthenic park or buy a cheap pull-up bar. To perform a pull-up, hold the bar and keep your arms straight. Like in a push-up, there is a space between your elbow and torso. If in doubt, use a slightly close grip and eliminate this space. Depress your shoulders. As you pull, you will bend your arms. As your arms bend, your elbows will go towards your torso. Once your chin reaches the bar, the repetition ends. The rest of your body should not move a lot. Just focus on your arms. In a pull-up, scapular retraction and protraction can make the pull-up very different. However, for now you don't need to fixate on this. Just make sure to increase your reps. However, most beginners will tend to perform a pull-up with a protracted scapula, and there is nothing wrong with it. To do a dip, it is preferable to do them in some parallel bars. However, if you cannot find some bars, you can use some chairs. There are plenty of YouTube videos for DIY solutions. To perform a dip, hold the bars. Your feet should not touch the ground. If not enough height, then bend your legs. Keep your body upright. Depress your shoulders. Like in a push-up, as you descend, you will bend your arms, and your shoulders should go forward. As your shoulders go forward, your elbow should be aligned to your wrist. Your torso will go forward as your shoulder go forward. and if your legs are aligned to your torso, then the rest of your body should be in a diagonal position. Once your elbow reaches 90 degrees, push. If you wish, you can go beyond 90 degrees. However, this can be harsh for the shoulders of beginners. As you push, extend your arms. Like in a push-up, there is a space between your elbow and torso. However, most dip bars are not that narrow, so just make sure that your elbows don't get too close or far away from your torso. Also, I remember my first reps of dips being painful to my chest. It is the only exercise that has given me that sort of muscular pain. 4 sets of pull-ups and 4 sets of dips. If you can only do 1 dip and 1 pull-up, then work with that. Rest more than 3 minutes if necessary. If unable to perform a dip and pull-up despite having 20 push-ups and 15 bodyweight rows, use negatives to achieve the exercise, 4 sets of 3 to 5 reps. The introduction of the pull-up and dip will give you more sets and more work for your back muscles and your chest, triceps, and shoulders. If you do this workout 4 times per week, this is what your weekly volume will look like. 16 sets of pull-ups, 16 sets of dips, 16 sets of push-ups, 16 sets of bodyweight rows, 16 sets of squats, and 16 sets of split squats. The workout time will increase to around 1 hour per workout. By the time you reach your first 5 pull-ups and your first 8 dips, it is time to move on to stage 3. The final change of the program. The only difference between stage 2 and stage 3 is the introduction of the pike push-up. Why not add the pike push-up all together with the dip and the pull-up? Because I thought that adding a pike push-up when you are learning the dip will be overwhelming, but the biggest reason was because of this. I personally believe that the pike push-up is harder than a dip. Therefore, if you can build your shoulder strength through dips first, then learning the pike push-up and being able to at least do 1 pike push-up should be more friendly. Why add a pike push-up? The pike push-up is basically a friendlier bodyweight overhead press than a standard handstand push-up. Pull-ups and bodyweight rows will cover most of the range of motion of your shoulder extension, whereas push-ups and dips will not cover most of the range of motion of your shoulder flexion. To perform a pike push-up, go to the initial position of a push-up. Use a somewhat close grip which will eliminate the doubt of the space between your torso and elbow, if that's an issue. Bring your legs forward. This will cause your hips to elevate. Align your wrists with your shoulders. Go down and forward as you bend your arms. Your torso will also go forward. Once your elbows reaches 90 degrees, push up and backwards. That will be a pike push-up. Like in a push-up, you can use different grips which will create a different space between your elbow and torso. However, for now, if you have the doubt, I recommend a narrow grip. The final workout will look like this. Pike push-ups, 4 sets. Pull-ups, 4 sets. Dips, 4 sets. Bodyweight rows, 4 sets. Push-ups, 4 sets. Squats, 4 sets. Split squats, 4 sets. Do as many reps as you can per set. This training program obviously has holes. For example, it doesn't have any direct arm work. However, in the context of calisthenics beginners, in my opinion, it is better to focus on becoming better on these compound exercises first, before doing any isolation exercises that might be harder to do. Another negative aspect of this program is the lack of specific core work. However, my explanation of this is that this training program is supposed to make it as simple as it can be. If you wish to add core work, then feel free to do it. However, I believe most people can have an okay core and abs by simply doing these compound exercises. Although, if you want abs, you should probably specifically work for them. I also didn't add any tibialis or calf exercise. Feel free to add if you wish. Feel free to also add cardio if you wish. If you decide to work out 4 times a week, the weekly volume will look like this. 16 sets of pike push-ups, 16 sets of pull-ups, 16 sets of dips, 16 sets of push-ups, 16 sets of bodyweight rows, 16 sets of squats, and 16 sets of split squats. You can increase the sets if you desire. Find more exercises, find different exercises, learn new exercises, or try a whole different training program. Your goal is to reach 12 reps of pike push-ups in 1 set, 12 pull-ups in 1 set, 20 dips in 1 set, 35 push-ups in 1 set, 30 bodyweight rows in 1 set, 50 squats in 1 set, and 30 split squats per leg in 1 set. This might take more than a year for a complete sedentary person, or maybe a bit more. It also depends how committed you are. Once you reach those goals, you will have successfully built a good base that will allow you to start doing more specific work for the type of calisthenics that you wish to train. You can start maybe adding skills to your training, or go full on skills and leave all the basics behind. If interested in skills, you should investigate specificity training, neural adaptation, whether or not you should train to failure, greasing the groove, and high frequency. I am pretty sure that there are other things that could help you out. You can also start doing weighted calisthenics if that's what you wish. You can keep doing the basics and follow the endurance journey, and try to always increase your reps. You can investigate immune training and circuit training, or you could leave calisthenics and go to the gym. These calisthenic exercises definitely will benefit you, or you can do a mix of them. Whatever you choose to do, remember that this is your journey, not anyone else's. Or if you just wanted a fit body, I am pretty sure these exercises will change your body. I made this video with the intention of helping my past 14-year-old self. I hope it helped you out.